Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I'm here to show you how I'm making these jar covers. As promised, I said I was going to do a separate video, so that's what I'm doing right now. And the main purpose of these is so that I can have a nice jar cover. I didn't bring my vinegar in here because I just wanted to shoot this video in here, but I've got 3 jars of vinegar sitting on the counter right now of apple scrap vinegar. And this is the purpose of these, is so that I can have something I can simply pull off, stir my vinegar, put it back on my jars, and it's easy and they're cute. I don't have to mess around with the band over a coffee filter or piece of fabric. I don't have to worry about a rubber band and having it fly off, like's happened to me a lot of times. They fly off and I lose them, and then putting that on there because it's already got the elastic built into it. And this is very simple. If you have any sewing skills at all, you can do this. The other thing I like about these is, like with these things here, well, this is right, I can vacuum seal this. Well, I might have a room to stick a few more carrots in there. I'm going to dehydrate up some more carrots. But right now I'm dehydrating some more potatoes, and I've got some more apples to do. I've got lots and lots of jars of these things, but these are the jars I still have to finish filling up. And usually when I'm doing that, I have them sitting on the kitchen counter so they're ready to go. I fill them up. Once I get them topped off, I vacuum seal and put them away. But as long as they're sitting on the counter, it's really nice having these covers on there because it just makes it look cuter while they're sitting there. It looks nicer. And so the thing is you can pick any style, any fabric you want. The most important things is that you're looking at 100% cotton, if you can get it. Natural fabrics, you know, it can also be linen. That would also be a good option. The main thing is you need it to breathe. So a nice thin cotton is best. And I have tons of cotton from all my skirt making over the years. I've got all these great prints. And so I just picked out some of my favorite. But let's get to this pattern. So it's super easy. I find, and this is going to be just like anything else, you can make it however big you want it, however big you want your ruffle. Now the ruffle on this one is bigger because it's cut the same size, but this fits on a regular mouth jar perfectly. And I'll explain the difference between that in just a minute. So that's why I brought that jar in here. Now, what I found to be a really good size is a 9-inch diameter circle. So that's what this piece of fabric is for. This is my pattern. So this is what I use to cut it out with. You're simply going to you can lay out as many pieces you want at a time. And I usually never pin anything in place, but just to make sure it doesn't slip and slide on you, you might want to go ahead and pin it into place, especially if you're doing several layers of fabric at a time, cutting out a bunch at a time. Usually that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting out several circles at a time. So you might want to draw it out on some paper first, you know, use your tape measure, use a ruler, whatever it is, and then make your circle. If you have a compass to do that, that would be best. We have some around here somewhere, but I never do that. I just create my circle just by measuring. A lot of times the easiest way to do it is, say if you're starting out with a piece of paper and this is your paper, is to fold your paper into quarters and then cut your circle as round as you can, and making sure that this is going to be about 4.5 inches right here. So if you're doing 9 inches, it's going to be from the corner to the edge. It's going to be 4.5 inches, and then just kind of measure that out. And then typically you should have a pretty even round circle. Then once you have your circle cut out, the very next thing you're going to want to do is do the hem. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. You don't want to wait until after you get the elastic on to do the hem. It's going to make it a lot harder. And I simply do a single fold. Some people, when you're working with a circle, they might do a little tiny roll like that. I just do a single fold. I like to keep things simple. This is, even though I throw these kind of things in the wash, as long as I do a zigzag stitch over it, I'm not concerned about it unraveling, but it will hold. And then, as you'll see in the video clip, the way I figured out to hold the fabric, because it's working in a circle that can be frustrating when you're doing a hem. That's why, the other reason why I did a single fold, is having the fingers on my left hand under the fabric, while the fingers on my right hand were holding it down in the fold and guiding it through. And of course you can do this by hand. That would be, in fact, sometimes people might find it easier to hem a small circle like this. It might be easier to do it by hand. So that's going to be up to you. I do recommend just doing a whip stitch in that case. Another option you can do is use, instead of hemming it at all, is just use some pinking shears and cut it out with your pinking shears. Even that can fray over time and might not look as nice, but that would make it simpler so you didn't have to mess with the hem. Then at that point, if you're making them to fit a wide mouth jar, from the edge of the hem, you're going to want to measure in 1 inch. Now, for me, my knuckle from here to here, this is 1 inch. I measured it years ago to make sure, and then again, recently measured again just to make sure I was still right on that. Not that I thought my fingers got any longer, but just wanted to make sure I was remembering it correctly. For most people, that's going to be the case. Even though I have small hands, my fingers are kind of fairly long for the size of my hands. So for me, this does work out to be 1 inch. If you have very long fingers or very short fingers, it may vary. So you might want to measure that if you're going to try to use the knuckle method. I like that because my knuckle's always there. I don't have to try to find a tape measure. And so I just put my knuckle on the edge of the fabric from the hem outwards, and then I'm going to start drawing a line. As you can see in this clip, I'm going to start drawing that circle where my elastic's going to go 1 inch in from that edge. And so I just keep using my knuckle to make sure. You can usually eyeball it. I mean, one thing about something like this is the ruffle, it's going to, once it's all pulled in, if it's a little off in places, no one's going to notice. But I still like to check it every so often to make sure I'm staying pretty close on track as I'm drawing that circle. And then once you have your circle drawn, you're going to need some nice stretchy, very stretchy elastic. This is probably about maybe a 1/4 inch right here. It could be a little wider than a 1/4 inch. But I have some varying widths that I saved from any of the fitted sheets that I either purchased, used, or new just to use as fabric. Because when you're needing, especially if you're needing some solid colors, like whenever I buy black fabric, because I like now mostly making my upper part of my skirts in black and doing the 4th tier in a patchwork style. So when I'm doing that, I'm buying a new set of black sheets. I do that because it's usually cheaper than buying fabric by the yard and doing it. And you can get 100% cotton that way. So what I do then, though, is I'm using all the sheets. I use the pillowcases, I use the fitted sheets, I use the flat sheet. But with fitted sheets, obviously you got to cut off the elastic and the corners. And so what I do is I save the elastic, especially if it's a nice elastic like this one is. And so I ended up with a lot of this that I've saved over the years. And that's what I found to be perfect. Some of them are a little more narrow than others. I find I like this width right here. I have one that's a little wider than this, but this width right here seems to be perfect. And then what I do is I lay this on top of the line. Just pick anywhere to start. You want to stitch it down real good where you're going to start it. Then you're going to stretch that elastic as far as you can go. This is going to be tricky. It might take a while to get the feel of it if you've never done it before this way. But you stretch it as tight as you can go while you're guiding it and trying to keep it over that line. Your zigzag stitch, which is, again, what I recommend for both the hem and for sewing the elastic on. And you're just going to sew all the way around until you get to the end. And then again, you're going to double back and forth, so make sure you're using your reverse on your sewing machine. And just anchor that down really good. Now, you might not have been able to tell by the video clips because I did kind of do a close-up, but my machine, though it looks like an electric machine, it's not. It's actually a non-electric treadle machine. It was purchased that way. You can actually find brand new machines, even though the old classic ones are super nice and I love the way they look. The newer ones actually have the zigzag stitch, where a lot of your antique sewing machines, treadle machines, do not have a zigzag stitch. So that's why I picked that, as much as I love the look of the classic treadle machines from years ago. So anyway, that's what I do all this with, which makes it even trickier because every so often you got to have your other hand to get that going again if you have to stop moving. And I have video just on that, by the way, sewing on a treadle machine, I'll link to down below. But anyway, once you have your elastic in place, it's done. Once you got it stitched on, it's ready to go. All you got to do is trim off your threads, and now you're ready to use it. This could also be really great for using as gifts. So let's say you're gifting somebody a jar of like a soup blend that you made with your dried carrots, dried potatoes, maybe some dehydrated chicken or beef, some bone broth that you dehydrated and powdered up, whatever it is, beans, peas, so on, and onions, garlic, all the rest. And then you can make one of these to go over the top of that just as a cute little gift idea. Oh, and one more thing I was going to say for that, what I told you was for wide mouth. For the regular mouth, if you use the same size circle, what's going to happen is you'll end up with a wider ruffle. However, I like that. I think it's cute. You don't have to do that. You may want to make your circle, if you don't like it that wide, then make your circle 8.5 inches diameter instead of 9, because what you're going to do is you're going to go in an 1.5 inches from the edge. Instead of an inch, you're going in a whole 1.5 inches, because actually what happened was, this was my trial run right here. I was just guessing where to put the elastic, so I drew my circle 1.5 inches in. Though I could get it on my wide mouth jar, it doesn't come down far enough. And but 1.5 inches is very good for the regular mouth. But anyway, for the vinegar, just so you know, the reason you need a nice tight, you want that real tight, and you want to stretch that all the way, is you want to make sure it has a very, very snug fit if you're using it for vinegar making, so that you're preventing fruit flies from getting in there. That's one of the main purposes of having a cover with a band or elastic over it, is keep those fruit flies out of your vinegar, because they happen. They will happen. And no, they don't materialize from thin air, but sometimes it sure seems like they do. And by the way, I have a video I did a year or so ago on how to control fruit flies, gnats, and so on, that I'll link to in the description box down below. And don't forget, by the way, click on more or show more somewhere. You'll see down here just below the screen to find any of the links and other information I'll put in the description box down below. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.